The world was once warm and safe. Nelly was a small pup, nestled against the soft fur of her mother. Her world was the den, a dark, earthy space filled with the scent of family. She had brothers and sisters, a tumbling pile of yips and paws. Her father was a strong, wise coyote. He brought them food and taught them the sounds of the wilderness. Nelly was special. Her left eye was the color of a summer sky, a bright, clear blue. Her right eye was the color of new spring leaves, a vibrant, deep green. Her mother would lick her face and say her eyes held the whole world, the sky and the earth, all in one small pup. She was loved. She was part of a pack. Then the world turned red. It started as a strange smell on the wind, sharp and hot. The birds grew silent. The air grew thick with smoke that made her eyes water. Her father barked a warning, a sound she had never heard before. It was a sound of pure fear. The fire came. It was a monster with 100 roaring mouths. It ate the trees and the bushes and the very ground itself. The sky turned orange and black. Her family ran. They ran from the heat and the terrifying noise. Nelly was small. Her legs were short. She tried to keep up, her little heart pounding like a drum against her ribs. She could hear her mother calling her name, but the smoke was a thick, dark blanket. It choked her and blinded her. She stumbled and fell, rolling down a small hill. When she looked up, she could see nothing but a wall of angry, dancing flames. She could hear nothing but the roar of the fire eater. She called for her mother. She yipped for her father. She whimpered for her brothers and sisters. But the only answer was the crackle and pop of the burning forest. The fire monster had eaten everything. It had eaten her world. It had eaten her family. When the flames finally passed, leaving behind a black and silent wasteland, Nelly was utterly and completely alone. The silence that followed the fire was worse than the noise. It was a heavy, empty silence that pressed down on her small body. The world was black and gray, covered in a soft layer of ash that puffed up with every step. The familiar scents of her home were gone, replaced by the bitter smell of burnt wood and scorched earth. Nelly padded through the ruins of her life, her one blue eye and one green eye wide with shock and grief. She was just a pup. She did not know how to hunt. She did not know how to find water. All she knew was the deep, aching hole in her heart where her family used to be. The world was big and scary, and she was very, very small. Days bled into nights. Hunger became a constant ache in Nelly's belly. It was a sharp, twisting pain that never went away. The burnt forest offered nothing. The rabbits were gone. The mice were gone. Even the insects seemed to have vanished. Nelly wandered aimlessly, her paws sore from walking on the rough, charred ground. Thirst was a fire in her throat. She learned to lick the morning dew from the surface of blackened leaves. It was not enough, but it kept her alive. She was a ghost in a dead world, a tiny survivor haunted by the memory of warmth and fullness. She dreamed of her mother's milk and the taste of fresh meat. But Nelly didn't go hungry because she couldn't find anything. It was because she never got to learn how to hunt. She found a piece of bread dropped by a hiker long ago. It was covered in a fuzzy green mold, but the gnawing hunger in her stomach was stronger than her disgust. She choked it down, the moldy taste clinging to her tongue. It was food. It filled a small part of the emptiness inside her. She learned to scavenge at the edges of the human world, finding discarded bags with foul-smelling scraps. It was a dangerous game. The sounds of cars were loud and frightening, but the promise of a single forgotten morsel was a powerful lure. She became a creature of shadows, slinking and hiding. There were days when she found nothing at all. On those days, the hunger was so intense it made her dizzy. In the deepest pit of her despair, she did the unthinkable. She ate her own waste. It was not just once. Often, when her search for food failed, Nelly was forced to eat her own feces just to keep something in her stomach. The shame was a heavy weight, but the drive to live was stronger. It was a bitter, grim meal that offered little nourishment, but it was something. Again and again, Nelly returned to this desperate act, a grim ritual performed in the lonely silence, a testament to her will to survive. She was no longer the playful pup who tumbled with her siblings. She was a gaunt, ragged survivor, her unique eyes clouded with sadness and a desperate primal need to see another sunrise. Her body grew thin. Her ribs showed through her patchy fur. Her once bright eyes lost some of their light, but she did not die. Every morning she forced her tired legs to stand. Every day she searched for anything that would quiet the painful cries of her stomach. She learned the landscape of survival, a harsh and unforgiving place. She knew which strange growths to avoid, and which rotten things could be eaten. She learned that life, even a life of constant hunger and loneliness, was precious. She was alone, but she was alive. And as long as she was alive, there was a tiny, flickering spark of hope deep inside her. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the recovering land, Nelly was chewing on a tough piece of old leather she had found near a hiking trail. It had no taste and offered little sustenance, but the act of chewing was a small comfort. Suddenly, a scent reached her nose. It was not the scent of old garbage or burnt wood. It was the scent of another coyote. Fear shot through her. Was it an enemy? A bigger, stronger coyote who would see her as a threat or an easy meal? She froze, her body tensing, ready to flee into the sparse undergrowth that was beginning to return to the forest floor. From behind a cluster of young pine trees, a young male coyote emerged. He was sleek and healthy, his coat a beautiful shade of gray that shone like metal in the sunlight. He moved with a quiet confidence that Nelly had not seen since she lost her father. He was not older than her. In fact, he was exactly Nelly's age. Yet he carried himself with the assurance of one who belonged. As he stepped into the light, it was clear. He was still just a pup, just like her. His legs were a little too long for his body, and his eyes were bright with curiosity rather than menace. For a moment, the two young coyotes simply stared at each other, both unsure, both fascinated. Nelly's tail gave a tiny, involuntary wag, and Silver's ears perked up in response. He stopped when he saw her, his intelligent yellow eyes taking in her ragged appearance, her thin frame, and her mismatched eyes. He did not growl, he did not snarl. He simply watched her with an expression of curiosity and something else, something that looked like concern. Their innocence was obvious in the way they mirrored each other's movements, each tilting their head at the same time, each taking a cautious step forward, then pausing. Nelly remained perfectly still, the piece of leather forgotten in her mouth. She expected him to chase her away, to claim this territory as his own. Lone coyotes were often a threat to established packs, but this male just sat down a respectful distance away and tilted his head. His name was Silver, a name his pack had given him for the way his fur seemed to capture the moonlight. He had been on a solo scouting mission, exploring the edges of his pack's territory, when he caught her scent. He had expected to find a rival, but instead, he found this sad, lonely pup with the eyes of sky and forest. Silver let out a soft, questioning whimper. It was not a challenge, but an invitation. It was the sound coyotes used to greet each other, a gentle inquiry. Nelly, still uncertain, answered with a soft yip of her own. Their noses touched, and for a heartbeat, the world was just the two of them, two pups, curious and hopeful, meeting for the very first time. The sound was so familiar, so full of the pack life she had lost, that it made Nelly's heart ache. For the first time in a very long time, she was not being threatened or ignored. She was being seen. Another coyote was speaking to her, not with aggression, but with what sounded like kindness. Hesitantly, Nelly let the tough leather fall from her mouth. She was scared. The loneliness was a heavier burden than fear. She took a tentative step forward. And so, with a single step, the bond between Nelly and Silver began. Two pups, innocent and curious, finding hope in each other. Silver remained patient, his calm demeanor a silent promise of safety. He did not move closer, allowing Nelly to control the space between them. He could see the deep sadness in her eyes, a sorrow that went beyond simple hunger. He could see the tremor in her thin legs. He knew that any sudden movement might send her bolting back into the shadows. So he waited, his tail giving a slow, gentle wag. He was a member of a strong pack, but he had a gentle heart. He had never seen a coyote look so utterly lost and alone, and it stirred a feeling of compassion deep within him. Summoning a courage she did not know she possessed, Nelly slowly closed the distance. She stopped a few feet from him, her head low. The scent of him was clean and strong, the smell of a well-fed and healthy animal. It was a stark contrast to her own scent of dust, decay, and desperation. She looked at him, her blue and green eyes filled with unshed tears. With a soft whine, she began to tell her story. She did not use words, but the language of coyotes is rich with sounds, postures, and expressions. She spoke of the warm den and the tumbling joy of her siblings. She spoke of the fire. Her whines became sharp and pained as she described the smoke, the heat, and the terrible roaring sound. She lowered her body to the ground, mimicking how she fell and was separated from her family. She let out a long, mournful howl, a sound of pure grief that echoed the call she had made for her lost parents. She told him of the emptiness that followed, the black and silent world. She nudged the dirt with her nose, showing him how she searched for food, how she ate things that no coyote should ever have to eat. Her story was etched in every movement, every sad sound that escaped her throat. Silver listened to it all. He sat completely still, his yellow eyes never leaving her. He heard the story of her unique eyes, the story of a happy family, and the story of a devastating loss. In the hush between their movements, a silent conversation unfolded. If their voices could be heard, Nelly's trembling posture would whisper, "I am lost. I am afraid. I have wandered so far, and I do not know if I can trust again." Silver's steady gaze and gentle tail would answer, "You are not alone now. I see your pain. I will not harm you. I will wait as long as you need." Her soft whine pleaded, "Will you listen to my sorrow?" His stillness replied, "I am here. Tell me everything." In the language of coyotes, every glance, every whimper, every careful step was a word, a promise, a hope. He felt her hunger and her loneliness as if they were his own. When her tale was finished, she stood before him, trembling and vulnerable, having shared the deepest pains of her heart. Silver felt a powerful urge to protect her. He knew what he had to do. He could not leave this brave, sad pup to face the world alone. He stood up, walked slowly toward her, and gently licked the side of her face. It was a gesture of comfort, of acceptance. It was a promise. Silver's gesture was a balm on Nelly's wounded spirit. The simple act of a gentle lick on her cheek was a kindness she had not felt since the fire. It was a touch that said, "You are not alone anymore." Hope, a feeling she had almost forgotten, began to blossom in her chest. Silver turned and looked back in the direction he had come from, then glanced at Nelly and gave a soft bark. It was a clear invitation. "Follow me." For a moment, Nelly hesitated. To follow him meant trusting a stranger, leaving the only grim territory she knew. But to stay meant more loneliness, more hunger, and a slow, certain fading of her spirit. She looked into his kind, steady eyes and made her choice. The journey to Silver's pack was not long, but for Nelly, every step was filled with a mix of anxiety and excitement. Silver walked at a slow, easy pace, often looking back to make sure she was still with him. He led her away from the burnt lands and into a territory that was lush and green, teeming with life. The air smelled of damp earth, pine needles, and the scent of rabbit and deer. It was the world as it was supposed to be. The sounds were different here, too. The cheerful chirping of birds and the rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth replaced the dead silence she had grown accustomed to. It was a symphony of life. As they approached, Nelly could smell them. The scent of a full pack of coyotes, strong and unmistakable. Her fear returned. Would they accept her? A strange pup with mismatched eyes and the smell of starvation clinging to her fur? Silver must have sensed her fear. He stopped and nuzzled her reassuringly before trotting forward into a clearing. There, a group of coyotes rested in the afternoon sun. An older male, with a wise and grizzled face, lifted his head. This was Alpha, the pack leader and Silver's father. He watched with piercing eyes as his son approached with the strange, thin female. Silver approached his father with respect, lowering his head and wagging his tail. He then turned to Nelly and nudged her forward, whining softly as he explained her story to the Alpha. He told of the fire, her loss, and her incredible will to survive. The other pack members gathered around, curious but cautious. Nelly stood frozen, her heart pounding. Alpha rose and walked slowly toward her. He sniffed her from nose to tail, his experienced senses reading her entire history of sorrow and hardship. After a long, tense moment, he looked at Silver, then back at Nelly and gave a short, affirmative bark. He had accepted her. Nelly was now part of the pack. Life with the pack was a new beginning. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Nelly's belly was full. The pack hunted together, a beautiful and efficient dance of strategy and instinct. She learned to chase down rabbits and to work with others to corner larger prey. The other coyotes, following their alpha's lead, treated her with kindness. They showed her the best places to find fresh water and the coziest spots to nap in the sun. Silver was always by her side, a constant and comforting presence. He was her guide, her friend, and her protector. The sadness in her unique eyes began to recede, replaced by a cautious joy. The seasons began to change. The lush green of summer was giving way to the golden hues of autumn. The alpha decided it was time for the pack to move to their winter territory, a dense forest in the foothills of a great mountain range that offered better shelter from the coming snows. The journey was long, and the pack traveled for days, their paws padding silently over the fallen leaves. Nelly had never traveled so far. She marveled at the changing landscape, the tall trees that seemed to touch the sky, and the crisp, clean air of the high country. She felt strong and confident, a true member of the pack. The forest was vast and unfamiliar, but the pack moved with purpose. One afternoon, an early autumn fog rolled in, thick and disorienting. It clung to the ground and wrapped around the tree trunks, swallowing landmarks and confusing scents. The world became a swirling sea of gray mist. The pack paused, waiting for the fog to clear, staying close together. But as Nelly and Silver explored the edge of the group, the fog thickened around them, muffling sounds and blurring shapes. Suddenly, they realized the others were no longer in sight. The world was silent and strange. Nelly and Silver called out, but their voices were swallowed by the mist. Their confident barks turned to anxious whines as they circled, searching for familiar scents. The fog did not lift as dusk began to fall. The temperature dropped, and a cold dampness settled into their fur. Nelly pressed close to Silver, finding comfort in his warmth. The familiar confidence they once felt was gone, replaced by a shared sense of vulnerability. They were deep in an unknown part of the forest, far from the rest of the pack. Their search for safety had led them into a new kind of danger. They were strong together, but even the bravest can be humbled by the vast, indifferent power of the wilderness. Nelly and Silver were lost, and the night was coming on fast. As darkness crept over the misty forest, Nelly and Silver moved quietly through the undergrowth, their senses on edge. Suddenly, a new and terrifying scent sliced through the damp air. It was sharp, musky, and predatory, impossible to ignore. Nelly recognized it instantly, the scent of a mountain lion. She pressed closer to Silver, feeling a shiver of fear ripple through the pack around them. Every coyote froze, ears swiveling, noses twitching, but Nelly and Silver stayed side by side, united, seeking comfort in each other, as the rest of the pack tensed in fear. The alpha's low, guttural growl rumbled through the group, a warning that danger was near. Nelly's heart pounded. The mountain lion was their greatest enemy, a silent, powerful hunter. Lost and disoriented, the pack began to scatter, but Nelly and Silver remained together, feeling the weight of dread settle over them. Suddenly, a dark shape appeared on the rocky ridge above, outlined against the fading sky. The mountain lion watched them from above. It was massive, all muscle and silent menace. Its tail twitched, and its pale eyes glowed in the gloom, locking onto Nelly and Silver. The mountain lion's gaze was cold and patient, calculating its next move. Nelly felt exposed. She knew the lion could sense their fear. Silver pressed closer to her, both of them trembling, but their unity gave them strength. The lion was waiting, choosing its moment. The pack huddled together in fear, but Nelly and Silver, together and apart from the others, focused only on each other. Would they survive this night? There was nowhere to run that the lion could not follow. The mountain lion screamed, the sound echoing through the trees. Nelly's fur bristled. Silver flinched beside her. Panic broke out. Some of the younger coyotes yelped and scattered, but Nelly and Silver stayed together, refusing to be separated. "Stay together! Dig! Dig now!" the alpha barked, his voice slicing through the chaos. Nelly and Silver joined the frantic digging at the base of a large, overturned tree root, working as one. It was their only hope. They knew they could not outrun or fight the lion. Their only chance was to escape underground, where the big cat could not follow. Instinct and desperation took over. Nelly and Silver dug side by side, paws flying, determined not to lose each other, even as the chaos of the pack swirled around them. Dirt flew as they clawed at the earth, each calling out for the other, but always together. Through the tangle of bodies and branches, Nelly and Silver never let go of each other, their unity unbroken even as the rest of the pack became scattered and frantic. The mountain lion leaped from the ridge, descending toward them with deadly grace. The pack dug faster, yipping in fear, but Nelly and Silver, together and isolated from the others, kept digging as one. Just as the lion closed in, the alpha broke through into a hidden cavity. and the main pack vanished underground. One by one, the coyotes squeezed into the narrow opening, but Nelly and Silver, still together, found themselves separated from the rest of the pack by fallen branches and the press of bodies. In the final moments, Nelly and Silver, united and alone, slipped into the darkness together, their eyes meeting in silent promise. For Nelly and Silver, the forest that once promised hope and companionship now echoed with the ache of being together, yet apart from all others, a bond unbroken in the shadow of the ridge. The pack huddled together in the tight, dark space of their emergency burrow. Above them, they could hear the massive lion sniffing and clawing at the entrance. The sound of its claws scraping against the wood and rock sent fresh waves of terror through the den, but the entrance was too small for the cat to enter. They were safe, at least for now. They pressed against one another, a shivering mass of fur and fear. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and their own adrenaline. The alpha stood guard near the entrance, letting out low growls to show the predator they were not helpless. All through the long dark night, they remained hidden. The lion did not leave immediately. It circled their hiding spot, occasionally letting out a frustrated snarl. But the coyotes were patient. They had found their sanctuary, and they would not emerge until the danger had passed. In the darkness, Nelly found herself pressed tightly against Silver. His steady warmth was a comfort against the cold fear that chilled her bones. She could feel the calm, rhythmic beating of his heart, and it soothed her own frantic pulse. In this moment of shared terror, something shifted between them. It was more than just friendship or gratitude. As they lay there, side by side, a deeper connection formed. Nelly remembered her life of utter loneliness, the cold and the hunger. And now, here she was, surrounded by a pack, protected from a terrible danger, with Silver's warm body shielding her. She nudged her head under his chin, a gesture of complete trust and affection. Silver responded by gently licking the top of her head. In the silent darkness of the burrow, they communicated their feelings without a single sound. They had faced death together, and in doing so, had found a profound bond. When the first rays of dawn finally filtered through tiny cracks in the root system, the sounds from above had ceased. The mountain lion had given up and moved on. Cautiously, the alpha poked his head out. The air was clear, the fog had lifted, and the forest was quiet. The pack emerged, blinking in the new light, their bodies stiff but unharmed. They had survived. As they regrouped, Nelly and Silver stood close together, their tails gently wagging and their bodies often touching. They had entered the burrow as friends and emerged as something more. They were in love. The pack, guided by the clear morning light, soon found its bearings. The alpha, with his unerring sense of direction restored, led them confidently toward their winter territory. They arrived in the sheltered forest before the first snows fell. The bond between Nelly and Silver grew stronger with each passing day. They hunted together, played together, and rested side by side, a perfect pair. The other pack members recognized and respected their bond. Nelly's unique eyes, one of sky and one of earth, now shone with a light of pure happiness and belonging. She was no longer the sad, lonely orphan. She was a cherished member of a family. Time passed, the deep snows of winter came and went, and the world awoke again in the vibrant green of spring. Life was returning to the forest. Birds sang from the treetops, and the air was filled with the promise of new beginnings. Nelly felt a change within herself. She began seeking out a private, sheltered spot, inspecting old logs and rocky crevices. Silver understood. He stayed close, helping her search. Together, they found a perfect den, hidden away and protected from the wind and rain. It was time. They were ready to start a family of their own. Within the cozy darkness of their new den, Nelly gave birth to a small litter of pups. They were tiny, blind, and helpless, squirming against her for warmth and milk. Silver was a proud and attentive father. He stood guard outside the den, his ears perked for any sign of danger. He brought Nelly the choicest pieces of food from the hunt, ensuring she remained strong enough to care for their young. He would gaze at his new family, his heart swelling with a love so powerful it filled his entire being. He saw Nelly, no longer a starving waif, but a strong and loving mother. One sunny afternoon, as the pups grew bigger and began to open their eyes, Nelly watched them tumble and play. One small female pup looked up at her, and Nelly's heart caught in her throat. The tiny pup had one eye the color of the summer sky, and one eye the color of new spring leaves. The circle of life had turned. The sorrow of her past had blossomed into the joy of the present. She had lost a family and found another. She had endured the deepest hardship and discovered the greatest love. Nelly licked her special pup, her heart full, knowing that her own story of survival was now the beginning of a new one.